I had a friend recently, she said she went out and she decided, I'm going to be the nicest person at Trader Joe's. and she said, but it had an extraordinary experience. And it was simply by being, hello, how are you? And then it's those choices and being aware that we're making them. That I think that awareness does play into the whole concept of courage to change. It's an awareness that I'm going to do something that's scary, and I know within me I have that ability, and I will be guided in that ability. I will be divinely inspired in that ability. But I have to participate in making that choice.
You're listening to the Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives. And here is your host, Damon Frank.
And welcome back to the Recovered Life Show, joined today by life and recovery strategist George Snyder. How you doing, George?
I'm well, Damon Frank. Good to see you.
Really great to see you. I'm excited about our topic today. We're going to talk about the courage to change.
Ooh. Yes, the courage to change. You know, it's that powerful phrase, and we know it. And as you know, with me, Damon, I mean, a lot of it has to do with language, the language that we can get ourselves into problems and get ourselves out of problems by the words, the language we're using to talk about what we're doing. So what do we mean? What do we mean by courage? And then what are we looking to change? And, you know, that with courage, I looked at mental, moral, right? And the dictionary says it's a strength. Courage is strength. Courage is an ability. Courage is a quality. Courage is a choice. It's a decision. Oh, well, now that's interesting. You know, is an ability a choice? I don't play basketball well. Okay, I don't have the basketball ability. Was that a choice? I never learned how to play bridge, right? Do I lack that ability, or was that a choice?
Well, you know, George, at first when I think of the word courage, I think before recovery, I would have thought courage has more to do with some sort of physical ability, meaning, you know, you think about war, you think about people who are going to storm that hill, you think about people who can, you know, jump out of into a fiery crash, or a firefighter. You think about courage, but courage in regards to recovery is a lot of different things, right? It's moral fortitude. It's it's the stick with itness, if you will, to be able to do it. And I think, you know, a lot of people have questions regarding that time in which you decide that you're going to get sober, the courage it takes to be able to do that. And I think, are they really talking about courage of acceptance, of accepting actually what's going on?
Well, good question. And let's think about this. Courage, I mean, you just mentioned battle, soldiers, war, difficult situations in which we experience fear. So courage is clearly tied to fear. I saw one person said, fear is a reaction, courage is a decision. But in a way, courage is also, if it's a decision, it's also a choice and how I react to a situation, you could say, right? So, but it's clearly it's tied to the notion that there's something difficult, something fearful, something that is going to be hard to do. And courage is a reaction, something we encourage. So, and I believe with the question in terms of, is it a choice or is it an ability? I think that is, I think our abilities involve a choice. I want to learn how to. I have a desire to learn how to, right? I have a desire to live a life in recovery. I have a desire to live a sober life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I'm wondering, like, when you say the word courage too, I think, okay, well, people are going to think, well, how do you get courage? Right? That would be my question. It's like, okay, the courage to change. Obviously, if you're saying the courage to change, you're saying, well, you're at a position where you have to change and you're not able to do it. And you have to be able to get this magical thing called courage in which to make that happen. And you discussed making different choices is a way in which to slowly gain that courage to make that big change.
Well, and there's the operative word, change. What kind of change we're talking about? And I mean, we're talking here very broadly. I mean, we can talk about the initial beginning of realizing I really have to stop drinking. I really can't continue the way I'm living, right? Or we can also say, I need to drop a few pounds. I need to get back to the gym. I need to eat better. Those are also changes. Change is really hard. Change, there's a whole industry of how to manage change in the corporate world, and people who are become experts in how managing change. So it really depends on a certain level what we mean by change, and then what are the mechanics of that? What's going on? I want to change. Wanting. I have a desire. I have a desire to live differently, right? I have a desire to do something or not do something. But let's focus on the positive. What do I have a desire to live a different way.
Yeah.
That desire feeds into the choice of courage. I have a desire to learn bridge or not. I mean,
so it's really taking these small, it's taking each opportunity that you have as small, almost little micro steps to change. So for example, many people come in and say, well, my big decision, my big courage in recovery is going to be that time where I decide no more, I'm going to live a sober life, I'm going to live a recovered life, and they take that leap, right? But really, in essence, courage is something that you have to have all the way through your recovery, because obviously, as you go through, you start realizing different things, whether it be character defects or things that you need, people, places, and things that you need to change in your life. And it's hard because you're in a pattern or you don't have that experience of change. And so it's that fear of the unknown. So what's the first step in taking these little micro steps, if you will, on choices? What do you advise people regarding that?
Well, I think to come back, the courage to change, where it's kind of a ratcheting, where there's a coupling between those ideas. You know, the courage, which is about desire, it's about making a decision, but also what do we mean? What are we talking about in terms of change, right? Is it a change in being more aware of something? Is it a change of and it's the serenity prayer, actually. That's our guide. It's about, I have battled a lot of problems that were never really problems. They were facts. There was no solution to these. These are things that I had done in the past that I wish I could undo, but I can't. So I'm focused on that. So let's look at what we can actually do. What could I do today? And the genius of 12-step programs is say, let's focus on 24 hours. Let's focus on what I can do today. Is one way. And as you're suggesting, let's break it down. Let's break it down into a manageable piece, right?
Yeah, the idea of the power of today is very powerful when it comes to change, because I think there is this fear that kicks in, and also like, well, how am I going to be able to make this change long term, right? When really the biggest change could happen in the here and now, right? By just making these different decisions. And you talked about diet. Do I pick up the candy bar, or do I maybe have a piece of fruit? Right? It doesn't even have to be big, huge, sweeping things. It could be these little changes that you make that build up your courage in order to do it longer and more effectively, if you will.
Well, it's also, I mean, and you've seen this, and I know myself, I'm like, oh, I got to watch my budget. I have got to watch, I'm spending money like it's going out of style. Now, okay, what did I spend yesterday? I don't know. What's my budget for the last week? I don't know. So I have this gut reaction of, I gotta start saving money. I gotta start budgeting, or I gotta start losing weight. What'd you eat yesterday? I don't know. So part of what we get to do is be conscious. So let's just get conscious before we decide and make any major decisions here. Let's start tracking. Let's start being aware, right? There was that moment, I will say, with my drinking, and I looked and thought, I can't do this any longer. And it was that moment of clarity, that looking and saying, this is not okay. And beginning to have that moment where I saw what I had been doing, right? But I think in recovery, we begin do this on a different scale. We begin to realize, oh, wait, let's just start paying attention to that. What am I eating? Am I eating healthily? Am I doing any kind of, have I done any kind of exercise recently? Let's check track and then work from there, right?
Yeah, and I think as life and recovery strategists, we're always looking for a way to be able to create change quickly with people, right? And I think that's the big thing. It's like, how do you all of a sudden create these massive shifts with people? And one of the benefits of being able to host a Recovered Life show is I get to talk with a lot of people who I deem as having radical transformations, right? And you hear a lot of these stories on the Recovered Life show, and we have even more of them coming, of people who were literally, okay, they were homeless and pregnant at 17, and and just lived a life on the streets, and then all of a sudden one day they make this massive shift and things start to change. What I've realized by interviewing people and also my own life experiences is that it's really not a drastic shift that all happens within one moment. It's really a building of awareness. And I think it's like, as the awareness becomes stronger and stronger and stronger, you get this feeling of acceptance of like, okay, I accept this is where I'm at here and now I'm just going to make this little choice. So I think what people view as courage actually is the long, it's at the end of a long string of becoming more and more and more aware of oneself.
Right. And you watch people with children and you begin to see that initial, like, I just caught that ball. I just, my dad tossed a ball to me and I caught it. Oh, I just did whatever kind of simple thing. I petted a dog. I mean, you begin. And so those experiences we're building constantly, absorbing you. So these children are like sponges, absorbing all of this. And we continue to do that. It's becoming aware of that and aware of our interaction. That's how we build up that experience of that. I'll go out on a limb here and say that my belief is that potential, when we tell somebody you have a lot of potential, everybody has a lot of potential. It's like the ability to breathe. Everyone has unlimited potential. What are you doing with it? Right?
As the years go on in recovery, I think at the beginning, if people would have asked, okay, what is the biggest thing that people need, the biggest skill that people need to be able to enact change, right? I would have said it was willingness. But now I'm really starting to believe that it's awareness, because without the awareness, you really can't become willing. And there's a lot of people that I think that are working on willingness, right? Like, okay, I'm now willing to change. I'm willing to stop drinking, stop using drugs. I'm willing to live a different life. But unless they're aware that it actually is a problem with them, there are a lot of people, and I think it's baffling for people who that have loved ones that have addiction problems and they've never struggled with an addiction problem. They say, well, how can the person not see that this is an issue? Well, they might have an inkling that this is an issue because they see the wreckage, but they're not really fully aware that they're participating in the problem.
Right. Somebody said, well, you build up ability through experience, right? You just build up, it's practice, right? Theory doesn't do you any good. Theory into practice is what do. But I heard recently somebody said, it's not experience per se, it's reflecting on that experience. And I think that's what you mean by the awareness. I've had this experience, and now let me look at this. Let me be aware of this, right? Because we can also do things unconsciously, not even realize. The great burden of being alive is about that necessity to create, where whether you create a breakfast or a child or a transportation system or a business or a career or whatever, you're creating. And how you are making these little choices, like you're going to have breakfast standing at the kitchen window, or you're going to sit down and use a plate and a fork and a knife. I mean, but basic things like that. You're going to make your bed in the morning. We've heard that all, self-care. These can be kind of simple, practical, and then reflecting on that. that we are creating all the time. It's not that there are some creative people, oh, they're really creative. No, all of us are creative. All of us have immense potential, unlimited potential. But what are we doing with it? And
it's funny because I think both of us would maybe agree to this, that with working with others in recovery, many people believe, I think that there's a perception that people have to make massive change. They have to do something big. They've got to quit the job, move. They've got to, break up with that person. They've got to, finally tell this person that they've had enough, or whatever it might be, whatever you're struggling with, right? And really what I've found is it's not those things. It's these small little decisions, right? Like, I'm going to treat myself with more kindness. Like small little decisions, like, no, I am going to sit down and actually enjoy my dinner. I'm not going to be rushed all the time. It's these small little decisions that really make these huge, massive changes in their life.
I had a friend recently, she said she went out and she decided, I'm going to be the nicest person at Trader Joe's. and she said, but it had an extraordinary experience. And it was simply by being, hello, how are you? And then it's those choices and being aware that we're making them that I think that awareness does play into the whole concept of courage to change. It's an awareness that I'm going to do something that's scary, and I know within me I have that ability, and I will be guided in that ability. I will be divinely inspired in that ability, but I have to participate in making that choice.
So final thoughts, George. If somebody's out there and they feel that they just lack courage, they feel that they just can't do it, right? They're just like, I've gone up to bat a million times. I've never been able to hit the ball. I just don't have the courage. What would be your final thoughts to them about ways that they can gain courage?
I think it's a good question. And I think the truth is that we all do, unless we are in an absolute catatonic state of despair and inability to get out of bed. It takes courage to get out of bed. The world's a scary place. And just because you're in recovery doesn't mean the world has stopped being scary, right? So just the fact that you're out of bed. So maybe shift perspective. I remember the first time in early sobriety, I went on a job interview, and I went on the job interview. I didn't get the job. And I came home in absolute despair and disappointment. I didn't get the job. And I talked to a friend, and he said, wait, what was the goal here? I thought the goal was to go on the job interview. Oh, well, yeah. Well, did you? Yes. Well, you're a success. Yay. Right? It's a shifting of perspective. That took tremendous courage for me. It took tremendous courage for me to go out the door and start saying hello to people, So let's shift the goalposts, if you will, but let's be more realistic about what it is. It takes courage to get out of bed. It takes courage to go out into the world. And you're doing it. We all have courage. We all have that ability. And we're not alone. I think that's the other piece. Find your support team.
This was really great. This is a really great episode. If they want to find out more about you, they can go to recoveredlife.us, and we'll create a thread on this episode, and people can comment, and you will respond.
And continue with the conversation. Yes.
Yes, let's continue with the conversation. Thanks so much, George.
Thank you, Damon.
Keep the conversation going. Join Recovered Life, a community of like-minded people who are looking to live their best recovered lives. Membership is free, and you can apply at recoveredlife.us.